Hello and welcome to Music Rewind, a podcast where we look to tell the stories behind our favorite albums. I'm your host, Steve Epley, and in each episode I will invite a guest to tell us about their favorite music album, how they discovered it, and what makes it special to them. Joining me today is an old friend, groomsman at my wedding, and someone I've had many long conversations with about everything from music to baseball, Michael Kattawar. Michael works in scheduling and dispatch for Atlanta Clean Tech, who does industrial cleaning for new homes, which I can imagine has been pretty crazy this year. A music fanatic who enjoys many genres, and to my benefit, he has gifted me numerous albums over the years, enlightening me to various artists in metal, bluegrass, jazz, and hip-hop. Welcome, Michael, and thank you for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, bud. It's good to see you. Good to talk to you. It's been a while now.
It has been quite a bit. Yeah, you left us and moved to Alabama.
Yeah, I did. And so we miss Georgia, and we miss being there. There's been some good friends made and everything here, and some good times had. But I mean, yeah, after a decade of being there, and obviously getting to know all you guys so well and everything, it's been kind of bittersweet. We're still looking into what we can do to make it back that way. Hopefully within a year's time, actually.
Oh, that would be cool. When I started this particular project, you were one of my first thoughts of who I wanted on this show, because we've had many, many long conversations about anything regarding music.
Yeah.
So your insight was going to be something that I wanted to get recorded and get out to the masses. So, Michael, let's jump right into this. What is your favorite album, and how did you discover it?
Well, knowing the conversations you and I have had, and you, as you said, knowing how adamant I am about my music and everything, it kind of put me in a pickle trying to decide that one album from that time of life and everything, to narrow down. I spent a solid 6-8 hours collectively just sitting up at night trying to pick one. And I ended up going with Metallica. I chose Ride the Lightning. Kind of went against the grain of the usual Master of Puppets. And my reasoning for that was simply that Ride the Lightning came to me first before Master of Puppets. The album came out in 1984, and I wasn't even born until 1985. I didn't hear it for the first time until I'd say probably 6 or 7. So, 1992, 1993, somewhere around there. It just kind of stuck to me, man. It was just the first thing I'd ever really heard like that. My older brother, Chris, 8 years older than me, is where I got a lot of my musical taste from and where I got introduced to a lot of things. But Chris, being 8 years older than me, was a little more into the punk scene and everything at the time, Circle Jerks, Fugazi, Bad Brains, those guys from that era. Stuff like Metallica just wasn't really quite his bag. And I don't remember how I heard it first. Probably just on the radio or something. We had a local rock station back home in Beaumont that played some pretty good music. And that's probably where I came across it, just hearing something on there for the first time. And then, that was around the time that Napster and stuff was big. And it took nothing to be able to look up a band name and find some music to be able to listen to, admittedly, before all the streaming services and all that stuff. So
I don't know if you're allowed to say Metallica and Napster on the same program.
Yeah,
so we'll have to tiptoe around that one there. Napster bad.
Right. Yeah.
So you heard Ride the Lightning before the Black Album then?
Yes. Yeah, I definitely heard Ride the Lightning before the Black Album. And for that matter, like I didn't really even get into Ride the Lightning until probably a couple of years later. When did Load come out? I don't remember exactly when that came out.
But it was like 97, 98.
Okay, so maybe that I got that CD for either Christmas or my birthday, like the year it came out. And I asked for it strictly on the premise of hearing one or two songs on the radio. And I just knew that I liked it. And so I don't know that I maybe even so much asked for that album. I just asked for a Metallica album. And that's what my parents ended up getting me, was the most recent one, that had come out. And so, of course, I listened to that and I'm just thinking, like, this isn't quite what I had in mind. Like, this doesn't sound like the rest of the stuff. And I think maybe that's just what kind of, I had a computer already and everything. My dad had always been into computers and building them and stuff. And so I had access to the internet and stuff like that. And started looking things up and trying to read about them. And I mean, I've still got a whole box full of cassette tapes that I recorded off the local radio station back home. And, so I mean, I don't know, it was just music. Music was my thing. And hearing thrash metal for the first time in my life, like 6 years old, and was just really into it, and like having a 4-year-old now and playing music for him and watching how he gets excited about stuff.
Oh, that's great.
I look back on and go, well, sure, of course I was into that. It was mind blowing at the time. Like,
so with me, my first exposure to Metallica was the Black Album. That came out right there with, I can't remember what year exactly, early 90s. But that was where, they were MTV heavy with Unforgiven, Enter Sandman. And then I heard a little bit of And Justice for All, a little bit. I wasn't really staying up for Headbangers Ball or anything on MTV. So it wasn't, that stuff really wasn't in my rotation at the time. But then later on in the Army, Metallica was pretty big in the barracks. And, you go in and out of different rooms and you're like, hey, what's that? Oh, it's Metallica. No, that's not any Metallica I've heard. And what is this? And then you start to discover, oh, that's old Metallica. This is from the mid 80s. Like, oh, I didn't know they were that old. And then you get into, the first time you hear Fade to Black and it's just, wow, that's not Load. That's not Reload. This is something completely different.
Yeah. And I mean, that was, even from Kill 'Em All to, Ride the Lightning to Master of Puppets and Justice for All and everything, like, while those other three are pretty similar. I mean, Kill 'Em All was obviously, a little more raw and down and dirty and just straightforward. There wasn't all the acoustic guitar work and I feel like more in-depth writing and everything involved. I mean, they definitely did some quick maturation and evolution, there as a band. I mean, hell, they were teens whenever they were first writing and recording that, so like they were young dudes.
Yeah, you can tell a huge difference between Kill 'Em All and Ride the Lightning. There's a gigantic leap in maturity and songwriting.
Absolutely,
there's actual melodies. Like you said, Kill 'Em All is just a handful of tracks of thrash metal.
Yep.
Nothing wrong with that, but that was their beginning. But yeah, Ride the Lightning, standout tracks, but still an album that you can listen to all the way through.
Yeah, and I mean, that was kind of one of the things that, I had for it. You had me do this, and I was sitting down listening to it track by track and kind of making notes and all, and which is not something I've done in a while. It's not like it's been forever since I've listened to this album, but it's been forever since I've sat and listened to this album.
Yeah.
I've just kind of forgotten, I guess, how much parts of it meant to me, how much particular songs did kind of stand with. I mean, the opening track, Fight Fire with Fire, it starts off with the acoustics and everything, and it's all nice and pretty, and then just kind of all of a sudden, wham. Okay, so these guys haven't forgotten how to thrash. Great,
It's really a great misdirect.
Yeah.
Yeah, the great classical intro, the acoustics, and then there's like a wave of rock that just sweeps over.
Yeah, it just kind of pommels you right in the face all of a sudden, and then your brains are beat out, and here you go, you're on for the ride. And so again, when I finally got this album, and finally got the CD, I had Load, and that's the first time that I'd been able to just sit and listen to a Metallica album start to finish with Load. But then I got this, And so the difference there immediately in the writing and the sound, load everything from this point forward, from Ride the Lightning forward, has always had some of those ups and downs like that. I mean, they're instrumental tracks that they started tacking on the album. I mean, that's down here in the notes and everything on my list later. That's one of the things that I loved the most about it was the instrumental tracks and what they started doing with those. I think Call of Cthulhu is my favorite track on this album.
It is a fantastic song.
I mean, it's the kind of thing, like these guys, ended up playing an album with a symphony behind it because some of their songs could allude to that. It's something that they wrote that they were capable of kind of adding on to.
I'm not the biggest fan of Metallica S&M, but that Call of Cthulhu where they start off is fantastic. 9 minutes of just, I watched it today on YouTube. Just, I wanted to see it again.
Yeah.
It was kind of neat though. I watched that and that was kind of them in their prime. Well, that's an opinion as far as, when they're in their prime. But I actually watched 3 Metallica videos today and it was that one. And then a version of Fade to Black from 2018 in Lincoln, Nebraska, which was an excellent version, but it showed their age because S&M was probably 99, 2000, somewhere in there.
That sounds about right. Yeah.
2018, 18 years later. And then a live version of For Whom the Bell Tolls with Cliff Burton.
Oh.
So back from 85. And just number one, their ages. You can go watching that one from 85 last. You're right. They were kids.
Yeah.
Absolute kids on stage and just rocking. They were having a blast.
Seeing James and Lars like with the long hair, I mean, that's just because now for so long, it seems like all that we know them as is these old dudes that, they've got tattoos, whatever, but they freaking rock. But then you go back, you look at them, go, not a tattoo one on them, no facial hair, long curly locks. I mean, they look like a hair metal band,
But the beauty is they didn't sound like one.
No, they did. Thankfully. No, I mean, single-handedly, without a doubt, one of the most important rock and roll bands of all time. And I don't think there's anybody that would ever, say otherwise.
Their string of albums in the 80s and 90s, though, from Ride the Lightning, Puppets, and Justice for All, and the Black Album, those 4 were just, I mean, when I say prime, that's what I'm talking about. Those guys were just in full stride, could do no wrong for those 4 albums.
Yeah, and man, I know how much grief the Black Album gets and everything oftentimes. I mean, I think that as a whole, it's almost become a joke more so than reality of what people really think about it. But Black Album was a good album. It was.
I agree. It's still one of my favorite Metallica albums. And after that, they definitely kind of, made some artistic decisions that not everyone agrees with. I love the Garage album.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Was that Garage Inc.?
Garage Days. Yeah.
Garage Days. Yeah. That was a fun album with Die, My Darling and Stone Cold Crazy.
The covers and stuff are cool. Yeah.
But they never really recaptured what they had in the 80s and 90s.
No, man, because then, you mentioned some of the other bands. I always knew that Dave Mustaine had tried out for Metallica or that they wanted him to or whatever, however the story truly goes. I'm not totally clear on that. But, Dave went on to make Megadeth. And while Megadeth may not be, I don't know, as it's tough for me to say this because, I mean, Megadeth is huge. Megadeth is a huge band all around the world. Are they Metallica status? I mean, no, they don't have the commercial success that Metallica has. But when you talk about the big thrash metal bands of that era, I mean, Slayer, Anthrax, Metallica, Megadeth, they're all said within the same vein, and Dave did a lot of writing for Metallica and
he's got some credits on this album.
Yeah, that's something that I made note of. I didn't realize that he was actually still credited with some of the writing for Ride the Lightning. It's not surprising to me, going back and listening to it after reading that. I thought, wow, that really does maybe kind of sound like some Dave Mustaine in there. Knowing Megadeth like I do, I can hear his guitar work and stuff. Dave Mustaine's an amazing guitarist, absolutely amazing guitarist. I don't care for Megadeth the way that I do Metallica. I still like him, but that dude's an incredible guitar.
One thing that I kind of discovered with revisiting this album was Cliff Burton. I knew that he was a big part of the band in the early days before his untimely death, right after Master of Puppets, I think. And yeah, I knew he was a good bassist. I didn't really know his skill level. I didn't really know. I couldn't point out that's Cliff on bass or anything.
Sure.
But in the reading and everything, apparently he was a huge influence in the maturity of this album, going from Kill 'Em All to Ride the Lightning, getting those melodies in there, getting the actual rhythmic bass mixed in with the dual guitars. Yeah. That was actually all Cliff teaching them how to do it.
Yeah. I mean, he taught them theory and everything. Yeah. I mean, these guys didn't know music theory and how to implement it. I mean, yeah, Cliff Burton taught these guys how to be musicians, basically, how to be better musicians.
And I also didn't know that at the beginning of For Whom the Bell Tolls, that's all him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, all that dun dun dun. I always thought that was guitar. Rather than just bass guitar. I didn't realize what he was doing there.
Okay.
The wah-wah pedal and everything. That was pretty cool. And it's actually pretty cool to see in that YouTube video. I recommend you seek that out.
Yeah, I probably should, man. That's admittedly something that, because like when I was so big into Metallica and everything, there wasn't YouTube.
That's true. That's very true.
You weren't so freely available to find stuff like that. And, I don't listen to Metallica I don't listen to metal the way that I used to. I actually put one of my metal album stations up on Pandora earlier today for the first time in ages. It was down at the bottom of my station list. Yeah, this is a rocking track. I forgot about this. I just don't listen to metal much anymore. That was something else that was kind of cool going back to this. It had me kind of going back to my roots. I mean, I was considering Pantera, for Vulgar Display of Power. I really wanted to talk about that. I mean, again, you talk about the first time as a young kid.
Yeah.
The power behind those vocals and that drum work. And I mean, Dimebag's guitar work, there was just nothing else in the world like it, man. Nothing else like it.
Yeah, I was in high school when I first heard Vulgar for the first time all the way through. And it was, you don't really know what to do with that power coming out of those speakers. It's like, right. Am I supposed to bob my head? Am I supposed to punch somebody? What am I supposed to do? Right. I like it, but I'm not sure how to react.
Yeah. Do I throw this bookshelf on the floor? What? Yeah. I mean, it was definitely something different. I mean, I was in middle school. I'll not forget. I was in middle school at my buddy Byron's house when I first, Byron O'Quinn, when I first heard that. And it was Daniel Splinter. He was about 2 years older than us, and he lived a couple of blocks away. And he had come by with the album, and we listened to it that night, hanging out in the backyard, playing basketball, whatever, and he put it on. And I just remember my eyes being like, the dinner plates just, what is this? I can't believe it. Even after liking Metallica, everything, it was still, that was a step beyond Metallica's level of heavy, Well,
the bands you mentioned, like say Anthrax and Pantera and stuff, they never really had their Black album that went mega popular. I hate to say the word mainstream, but the Black album had several ballads on there that got a lot of MTV playtime. Nothing Else Matters and Unforgiven, and
right.
and that would change any evolution of any band. But say Anthrax, all I could tell you is Scott Ian with the beard. I couldn't tell you a song. Pantera, yeah. I can tell you several songs at least, but all those other bands, Slayer and stuff, Angel of Death or something. I mean,
yeah, Angel of Death is a good one to mention. Yeah,
that's like the first and only one that comes to mind. I don't have the in-depth metal knowledge. That's like it. But like Metallica, because of the Black album, I was able to kind of discover in reverse
Sure.
several amazing albums. I'll thank MTV for that. I'll give them credit where it's due.
They were good for something at one point in time. Yeah. You had Beavis and Butthead and
oh yeah.
Was that Aeon Flux and stuff like that? They play late night.
Didn't Beavis have a Metallica shirt?
Yeah,
he did.
Yeah. And ACD, or was it AC? Butthead was ACDC.
One had ACDC, one had Metallica.
Yeah. Crash talking about Beavis and Butthead.
Because that is the first time I saw the video for one. Was Beavis and Butthead.
Yes, I remember that episode.
Yeah, where Beavis was kind of going on, this sucks. Why we watched it, and Butthead kept saying, "Wait for it," and then Beavis goes nuts after the midpoint.
Yeah.
I remember that.
And see, I probably could have chosen "And Justice for All." Honestly, I love that album too. If it weren't for the recording of it, which is something you hear so much, just the complete and utter lack of clip. There's no bass, no bottom end to it. If that album had been recorded differently, I believe that, I still think it's in their top three, those three albums, Ride the Lightning, And Justice for All, and Master of Puppets. But there's some particular songs on And Justice for All that I think the writing was maybe better for some of the songs on that album than they were on the other two. Just lyrical content and composition of the song. The recording sucked, which is what was such a downer about it, But I don't know. Like it was really hard not to just pick the trifecta. Just say, I'm gonna talk about all three of them, which is what we've done already. So
someone may come on later and still pick Puppets or re-talk about Ride the Lightning, and I'm not keeping anybody from it. But the actual album, Ride the Lightning, is a great listen from front to back. More so the front, and then I don't know. There are a couple tracks like Escape and Trapped Under Ice are two that they're not bad songs. They just, to me, don't quite live up to Bells and Fade to Black and Cthulhu. Well, Creeping Death's in there though, so
yeah. Creeping Death is like that's where I made my kind of big bold note, because for me, Ride the Lightning, the title track. This is something else I didn't know until I started kind of digging in and doing a little research for this. That apparently, did you know that it was named off of a line from The Stand by Stephen King?
That makes sense.
It's a line that's spoken at some point or whatever, and they decided I forget who it was. It was like, oh, well, that sounds kind of cool. Let's use that, whatever. But yeah, that's what it came from. That's the title of the album and the title of that track. It was from The Stand.
That makes perfect sense. I mean, as far as Stephen King and the electric chair,
right?
He's got a thing with the electric chairs.
For me, honestly, For Whom the Bell Tolls, I know that it would be considered like the single off the album pretty much, or whatever, the big hit that's heard and all. Spotify had it with the most plays as well, but like by like 20,000, 30,000 plays or something. Like, yeah, it got played infinitely more than any other track. But it I don't want to say my least favorite track on the album, but it would be close. I really just don't, it just doesn't do that much for it.
I've seen a lot of Soldier and Army compilation videos to that one.
Yeah, okay.
With whoever making it not understanding the irony of the actual lyrics and purpose of the song, which is kind of a protest against the horrors of modern warfare.
Yeah. I mean, do you not really grasp even like what the title of the song, what that phrase like means?
Someone who's never read the book, apparently.
Uh-huh.
Take a look to the sky just before you die. It's the last time you will. Rock and roll after roll fills the crumbling sky. Just a soul fills the soul with a ruthless pride.
I mean, I think that Fade to Black, the song after it just has more depth and everything to it.
I agree. I mean, well, For Whom the Bell Tolls is a good track, whereas Fade to Black it's an epic rock ballad, for lack of a better word. It is. I mean, this the way it starts. I mean, it tells a story. It does tell a story. It's about a guy contemplating suicide, and then eventually, at the end, he does kill himself. It's deep, lyrically and sonically. I mean, just that song is what stuck me to this album. I know Call of Cthulhu is good, but Fade to Black with that beginning. And then that midpoint where it turns, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it also, like, I feel like it's one of the ones on the album, maybe off the top of my head couldn't pick out the others, but where James, like, really clean vocals from him.
He's not growling.
Yeah, he's not growling stuff. He has his voice, and he does it very well. And something I've always liked for him, and, I could say this about a number of other metal artists or whatever, metal vocalists in particular, but, like, when they don't sound like they're having to try so hard to get their sound. He just does it, and it sounds like him, and it sounds good. Philip Anselmo, Pantera. I've never in my life heard somebody that has, like, the octave range, can scream you into the ground, and then turn around and sing you a pretty little ballad afterwards, and hit the highs and the lows, like, and the ability to do it all without effort.
Who's that guy from Slipknot? Corey Taylor.
Yeah.
He's one of those that's what you were just describing. That reminds me of because he had that side gig with Stone Sour, I think they were called. Yeah. Where it's like someone, that's beautiful tracks, very clear vocals, like you said. And then someone tells you, hey, that's the dude from Slipknot, the guys with all the mass and the thrash metal. Like, no. Yeah.
I mean, while I'm not a big fan, I can appreciate, like, his ability and what he's able to do there. Like, it's impressive. It's really impressive to be able to hear that amount and power of voice come out of somebody, and it just seems so effortless. Now, I know that. I'm sure it's work. They're trained to do it. It's not something you just wake up doing one day. It takes lots of effort and practice. But I mean, if I tried screaming like Phil does in Pantera, if I tried doing that, I'd probably throw up. Without having the knowledge and experience that I do, whatever, with recording and any of that, it does also kind of make me wonder how much of that has to do with the recording quality as well. The booth they were in, the mic used, just whatever. I know that doesn't change somebody's voice, but, like, I don't believe that James was using any kind of voice modulation on the Black Album, to change his voice, but just the recording itself makes me just kind of wonder how much of it was his voice changing and how much of it was just, it was a newer age. It was some newer equipment. Maybe they had better payroll to use, whatever, for the recording. Like,
I can only assume that makes a huge difference regarding, time in the studio as well. I mean, because when you're first starting out, I mean, when they made this, I don't even think they were fully signed yet to a major label. It was
on Elektra still.
Was it on Elektra? I know they were eventually signed for Elektra, but I know Kill 'Em All wasn't.
Okay. No, Kill 'Em All definitely. Yeah.
So when the, once you get that money and you get more time to say, okay, that was good, let's do it again, but do better.
Sure. And see, I hadn't even considered it like that. Yeah, I wouldn't even think of that. I was just thinking hardware even,
And then a producer makes a big difference. I have no idea who produced these albums, if they have a go-to producer, but it's something that I'm discovering more and more doing these shows, is that the producer in the booth makes a huge difference as far as someone that the band trusts and someone that that gets to know their voice.
Yeah.
Lyrically, though, one thing I like about this album is that each song, I mean, the overall concept you'd say is death. I mean, just that's kind of
of course, yeah.
Ride the lightning,
so.
Yes.
Yeah.
But each individual song tells at least its own individual story, or it's not really it's not a message album by any means. But you're looking at Ride the Lightning. It's a guy that's being wrongfully put to death in the electric chair. For Whom the Bell Tolls, Horrors of Modern Warfare. Fade to Black is about suicide. trapped under ice. You got a guy who's cryogenically frozen and they wake up and they cannot get out.
Yeah.
James was, I don't know what James was doing writing the lyrics, but he was definitely putting some stuff out there.
I felt like almost maybe he was doing some like a lot of science fiction reading or something, maybe, you know, like, I mean, who was reading Stephen King to just even get that line from Stephen King?
Yeah.
One of them there was a conversation between them to name the album that, and subsequently the song, or maybe the song came first, whatever. But somebody was doing some reading. So yeah, like what were they reading? How much of this came from just sitting around and being dorks and reading books, you know?
Well, then Creeping Death is about the Passover.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I did read, though, that no one was reading the Bible at the time. They were actually watching the Ten Commandments.
Yeah, yeah. I saw it. Yeah. I don't see, I mean, I don't know anything about them personally, but yeah, I don't really see it. I'm sitting around bumping.
I never noticed that. And then I listened to it while reading the lyrics, and like, I'll be damned. They're very specific. They're going right down the whole story.
Yeah.
Had no idea.
That is one of my probably top two favorites on the album. Between Creeping Death and then Call of Cthulhu after it, like on Master of Puppets, they kind of did it the other way around, where the instrumental was second to last, I believe, Orion. Yeah. And then after that comes Damage Incorporated to just really like, that's the final send off, super thrash, beat your brains out of your head song. On Ride the Lightning, Creeping Death is followed by the calmer 9-minute long Call of Cthulhu to close out the album. And I'm kind of torn as to which way I think is better. You know, I mean, Call of Cthulhu is great. Love it and everything. But I feel like it's maybe a little bit of a calm send off, and it should have been put earlier in the album. And then something like Creeping Death, like you're saying, the subject matter, everything being death, this and that. I feel like this one is just probably the most in your face death. Like it's just this, that, the other, slave, born to serve. Like everything's just really, it's not heavy in the sound. Heavy is in the content.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like if it were me, I would be wanting to walk off a stage from that and not Call of Cthulhu. You know, I feel like that one could have been a little earlier on. I feel like they did it more right with Master of Puppets closing out with Damage Incorporated.
I could really go either way, because for me, Call of Cthulhu versus Orion, I mean, that's almost like Kirk versus Picard there, you know. And because I've always loved Orion. I actually heard Orion first, but then Metallica S&M came out in that amazing version of Call of Cthulhu, which I prefer over the Ride the Lightning version. I don't know. There's just something about that version. They did everything right there. But Orion, that's really a hard call. You know, which album ends better? I think that Ride the Lightning ends better, whereas Puppets starts better.
Okay. I could get on board with that. Sure. Was it Battery that starts off?
Yeah. Battery's a wonderful song. And then that leads right into Puppets. So It's just, it's a 1-2 punch right there from the beginning.
Yeah.
Which I love tracks 1 and 2 of this album. They're great. But it really kicks into gear for me with 3 and 4 with Bells and Fade to Black. That's those two together for me are the meat and potatoes of this whole album, and they're awesome. And then it does end well though. So you got the meat and potatoes in the middle, and then at the end. And I'm sorry for Trapped Under Ice and Escape. They're just kind of there. They are. There is a little bit of filler on this album, and I kind of made note of that myself too. That as much as I love it and I have picked it, I still wouldn't skip them. Still don't skip them. I still listen to them. They're still good. Like they are a little bit of filler. I mean, Trapped Under Ice. I do like Trapped Under Ice, but yeah, there's a couple of tracks on there that if they had basically, I don't know, if I could go back or if they re-released it and they were like, here's some B-sides and we thought about putting these in there. If one of those was good, I'd probably go, okay, you should have put that one. That should have been the one you put in. I'd be curious to hear if there's any B-sides on this. I mean, you know, they're 45 minutes and it's only like 8 tracks or so? 8 tracks. 8 or 9 tracks? Okay. Yeah. 8. I don't know. I'd be hard pressed to imagine that there probably was. I mean, they had room and time for another, especially like with a 9-minute epic at the end of the album. They've got room for another song. So
Maybe they just weren't any good.
And Fade to Black is not short either. What was that? Let me
No,
see.
it's not.
Fade to Black is just under 7, and then Cthulhu is just under 9. But Ride the Lightning is 640 itself.
See, maybe I didn't realize that. I didn't realize that was that long. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, but again, yeah, when you've got a 45-minute album that's only got 8 tracks on it, like, I mean, yeah, they're all going to be, 5 minutes plus each, basically, average. So, there's grandparents that know who Metallica is. Like, there's babies who know Metallica is. There's every country in the world knows who Metallica is. They're just, it's a household name. There's just no two ways about it. Everyone has seen their logo. Metallica, you put logos up everywhere, whether they can read the words or not. You look at that logo and it's recognizable. Everybody's seen it before. They know what it is.
This is true.
I don't know. Not everybody recognizes everybody recognizes the Van Halen VH. Everybody recognizes the Rolling Stones tongue. Like, it's become iconic for a reason, I guess.
Have you had the chance to see them live?
Metallica? No, I have not.
Really?
No, never have. Most of the bands that I've been to a load of live shows, man. I've been to lots and lots of live shows, but most of them that I've been to, I've really not been to too many big bands. I mean, the biggest, aside from like a festival type thing or something, I've seen Iron Maiden, seen Motorhead, seen Alice Cooper. Those are some of the biggest things. I've got a picture of me, AJ, and Tattoo hanging out with Slayer and take pictures with them and take a shot of Jaeger with them.
Nice.
That's only because Amy was working at Gwinnett Arena at the time. She got us upstairs in the VIP lounge with them. So, I mean, at that show, that was, who else was playing that night? That was Slayer and, God, was that actually Slayer, Anthrax, and Megadeth all together in the same night, I think?
Damn.
Yeah, I really think it was. It was at least Anthrax and Slayer that night. I'd have to ask Nick about that. He would remember. But yeah, I mean, those, I say only, like, hell, those are some really big names that I've been fortunate enough to see. But the Iron Maiden, the Motorhead, those were at an outdoor festival thing. They're in Alpharetta.
I got to see Metallica when I was 18, right before I left for the Army, up in Illinois. And
So what year was that?
This was 98.
98. Okay. That wasn't a bad year for Metallica.
It was right after Load and Reload came out, and they came out and they said, well, sorry for fans of Load and Reload. We feel like playing old stuff. And everybody goes nuts. And the show was fantastic. Days of the New and Jerry Cantrell opened for them. So it was a great show.
Jerry Cantrell solo.
Yes.
He just put out a new solo album.
Did he?
I haven't gotten to listen to it yet, but yeah, he just released it. Yeah.
But then I saw them about a year and a half later when I was at my permanent duty station in Hawaii, and they sucked. It was absolute horseshit. It was one of those situations where a lot of bands would go to Hawaii and they would kind of just do a half-assed job to pay for their vacation, more or less. Tool was the same way. Tool was a abysmal show. It was horrible. And I love Tool, but their show on Hawaii was bad. It kind of gave me left Metallica with me on a sour note, but then years later I saw them at Bonnaroo and played a fantastic set. Okay. So they redeemed themselves for me, again at Bonnaroo. So I have technically seen them 3 times.
Right on. Okay. See, Tool, that's another one of those that I would have loved to have gone and seen. I had a group of friends of mine that were going to see them back home in Beaumont. I ended up having to work like 26-hour shift or something for this big print job that we were doing. And while I would have liked to have gone to, tickets were like $60 or something also. And I just was not in the place to be spending $60 on a Tool ticket and be missing out on all the overtime that I was going to get for that.
Fair enough.
I didn't end up going. And I'd also heard so much stuff at that time about Maynard and how weird he was at shows, like standing behind a curtain, or never facing the crowd or whatever.
He literally turned and played PlayStation for 20 minutes during like a very slow bass solo. That was it.
Yeah, no. I'm
He
sorry.
turned, he sat down, he played PlayStation while, I mean, not even like a good bass solo. It was, doom, 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 doom. And it was at the UH campus, which had no alcohol. So people were just bored out of their minds.
Wow.
It was really bad.
And see, like, I like the earlier Tool. I can't stand anything that they've done.
This was after Lateralis
or whatever. Yeah, no, I don't even like Lateralis. Like, I don't like that album. I don't like anything they've done since Anima or Anima or whatever the hell it is.
And I wouldn't mind if someone brought Undertow.
Undertow and Opiate were awesome albums. But, like, since then, all puns intended, he's a tool bag. And I don't like that band. I don't like anything. Every album sounds the same. And it doesn't sound good same. It just, I don't know. He needs to keep making wine and whatever it is he's doing these days.
The only really good concert I saw out in Hawaii was called the Great Hawaiian Smokeout. It was sponsored by Dare, and it was anti-drug concert. It was headlined by Cypress Hill and Pennywise.
Nice.
Yeah, it was pretty fantastic. Sponsored by Dare.
I would like to see Cypress Hill. I could get on board with that.
They had a great cover of War Pigs.
Really?
Yeah, it was really good.
I've heard a lot of War Pigs covers, but I've never heard Cypress Hill cover. Interesting. I've been to some good hip hop shows too, man. Like that. Again, you asked me about like a short list and some other potentials.
Ride the Lightning made your top spot. What's on your short list?
Again, trying to keep my mind narrowed down to that day and age, that time of my life or whatever, earlier on, and not anything recent. I was also trying to just kind of consider things in a different direction, not considering another metal album, because as you said, and as you know about me, my taste is pretty varied. I like a little bit of everything. And so I tried to kind of swing a different direction. Like I mentioned, my brother and his interest in the punk rock and everything at the time. Fugazi is on that list. 13 songs came out in 1989. 13 songs is kind of a compilation. If I remember right, it's from like their 2 or 3 EPs they had put out previously. So it's not a best of. It's not anything new either. It's just some shorter albums all kind of mashed together to make 13 songs. Yeah, Ian MacKaye, the lead singer and most of the writing and everything for that, he's probably hands down one of the most important guys of the punk era in the late 80s. My brother is, like I said, who got me into them, and my older brother played bass, and subsequently I played bass, or I tried to. Chris was always far more better bassist than myself. But one of the things that really drew me to them was how involved in the songs and everything the bassist was, and especially for punk music. Like it's almost like they had a funk bassist playing punk for them. And then you've got a band like Red Hot Chili Peppers, who back then, in that time, mid to late 80s, early 90s, whatever, before they played the garbage that they play now and have for the past 10 years. Dude, stuff like Mother's Milk and Blood Sugar Sex Magic and all. I mean, again, you talk about funk bassist playing punk type stuff, whatever. Like, I mean, it was just that weird mix. There was a lot of that going on then. I mean, that's when like the rap rock stuff started. Suicidal Tendencies, playing and everything, like those guys. That's Robert Trujillo, who is now playing bass for Metallica.
He was in Suicidal Tendencies?
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I had to look it up because you caught me on a limb there, and I was going to make an ass of myself. Yeah. But yeah. Fugazi, 13 songs. That one was really important. And then my brother also got me into some hip-hop, early hip-hop. I mean, man, Tribe Called Quest, of course, Jurassic 5. Jurassic 5 is still one of my favorite hip-hop groups. Man, there was something about a group of MCs getting together and each one of them having their parts. Not quite like a harmony, with a number of singers singing harmony together. But when you could get 2, 3, 4 guys that can all have their parts of the song with their lyrics and their rhymes and their own cadence and their own sound, and it all works together. And then you throw in like a jazz loop beat in the background, I'm hooked. That's my kind of hip hop. I love hearing the jazz beat and stuff like that mixed in, especially kind of later in playing trumpet, middle school and everything, getting into jazz and being able to sometimes recognize some of the stuff these guys were cutting into their songs.
That's cool.
Yeah, you know, being able to pick up on some of that, it was great. Great. So yeah, Fugazi, 13 songs, and it was a Jurassic 5 Concrete Schoolyard. But yeah, those two probably would be the honorable mentions of that era.
Those would be two albums that I have not listened to.
Yeah?
Yeah, I'd have to check those out.
I almost chose 13 songs over Metallica. I almost did.
Yeah, we can always have you back on and talk that one.
Dude, and that's, you know, that's like I told you, especially here the last couple of years working from home now and everything too. I've come across so many new artists that I've had time to just, like, while I'm working, just sit down and look up new stuff and listen to. I mean, I'm sure you've heard of Tyler Childers and the stuff he's been putting out. I mean, that guy's amazing. Lainey and I got to go see him. Amazing singer-songwriter. And then Idols is one of my new favorite bands. European group, combination of like Irishman and Englishman. They actually just played on Jimmy Kimmel, I think, like last night. They got a new album coming out next week. They're incredible. I absolutely love them. I found them and I put the 2 albums they had out at the time on repeat for like 3 weeks straight, probably. My wife got sick of it, hearing them all the time. There's lots of good stuff out there. There's still good music being made.
That's good to hear.
Yeah.
I'm discovering lots of old stuff with this particular project, but I am definitely glad that there's also good new stuff coming out. By all means, we'll have you back on and talk some of those albums as well.
Sounds like a plan, man. We'll have to pick some other kind of theme maybe so I can narrow it down again.
Well, let's say it's not specifically, you know, an album that changed your mind. It's just more of a, what's your favorite album that you want to talk about? That's really what it is.
Saying. This time though, I've got to give myself some limitation, you know. Is really what it's about. I got to give myself some limitations. Otherwise I'll obsess over it and find 30 different albums to talk about. Let's see, if I were maybe just picking one, say like from each genre or whatever, if I just did something like that for myself, then that would allow me some focus.
That would be up to you.
Okay. We'll talk about it further off the air.
Well, Michael, before we wrap this up, please tell our listeners what you're working on, or if they can find you anywhere, or anything you'd like to pitch.
Steve, all I'm really working on these days is keeping those 2 little boys out of as much trouble as I can. That's about it. Dad life and working hard. That's it. I mean, company, Atlanta Clean Tech, you know, if you're building a new home for yourself, or if you happen to be a home builder and you're in that market, you can find us online at atlantacleantech.com, and we can give you help out with a lot of your subcontractor needs and cleaning and pressure washing in the Atlanta area. We're currently trying to expand a bit into Huntsville, Alabama, where we've got some work, and also down in Destin, Florida area. Other than that, man, that's it. Just work and lots of play with a 4-year-old and 2-year-old.
Excellent. Well, Michael, I'd like to thank you for your time today. It was a pleasure to sit and talk to you about Metallica's Ride the Lightning.
Yeah, man. Thank you much. It's good to see you. Good to talk to you. We'll have to do it again sooner and later.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to Music Rewind, a podcast from the Sidereal Media Group. As I always say, listen to the full album. Until next time.
A podcast from the Sidereal Media Group. Back to you, anchors.